Welcome to another enlightening episode of We Are Listening. I'm your host, Pulkit Garg, founder of Aanya Wellness. Today, we are diving into a topic that affects each and every one of us: change. Whether we realize it or not, we are all in a constant relationship with change. It's a part of our daily lives, our growth, and our healing. We all have been hearing that change is the only thing that's constant. And yes, it's the ultimate truth. It's not always all that gloomy, neither it is all that sparkly all the time. There's always a sunrise after a long night of darkness, and the sun sets after the whole day of brightness. Every atom, every being, everything in this universe is under constant change. And to discuss the ever changing nature of our existence, our guest today, Dave Henry, knows a lot about navigating change. Dave is a strengths based guide with a profound message. You can negotiate with change for a better quality of life. That got me surprised and started a bit, and we will soon have Dave to share his experience on this. Just completing his introduction, Dave comes with over 36 years in spiritual communities, 29 years with the Mankind Project in the USA, and over 20 years as a coach. Dave brings a wealth of experience and insight. His forthcoming book, Negotiating with Change, offers a roadmap to managing change and awakening to your own life. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Thank you, Pulkit. I really appreciate being here.
The pleasure is all mine, Dave. Thanks for accepting our invite. And I'm totally intrigued with the title of your book, Negotiating with Change. So before we, get into understanding what the title means, what gave this title its existence, I would love to understand about your life journey, what helped you evolve, your 36 years of experience in the communities. So if you can just shed some light on that.
Sure. I've always been a lifelong learner. I'm fascinated with life. I've made some poor decisions and I've made some good decisions in my life. The poor decisions led me to delve into who I am and what I'm about because these poor decisions were made based on childhood issues. So I had a period of time in my life when I did some drinking and the drinking got the best of me. And once I got out of that, I began to look into spirituality and process of change as a topic of study. And it's borne some fine fruit for me. So the first time that I really felt, of course, I got married and I had some children. And shortly after I got married and before I had children, I found myself out of work. And this is my first experience of negotiating with change is here I am, a newly married man, and I'm out of work. And what am I going to do? And a friend of mine called me up, and he had just gotten a new job as a building operator, supervisor for a high-rise building in a city. And they had a food service in this building that was losing tens of thousands of dollars a month. Now, I had been in the food business for a number of years, probably by that time, 15 years. And so I said, sure, I'll come and take a look at the place. I dressed nicely and I went and took a look at this place. I'd never been on the top of a high rise building, so I was kind of excited about that. One thing led to another. I met the administrator of the program.
Mhm.
It was a senior citizen program, and I met the administrator, and he said to me, yes, right now we're currently putting out to bid a request for bid for the food service operation because we can't seem to do it profitably. Not that it was a nonprofit organization, but you can't lose $20,000 a month. And so within 3 weeks of that time, I had signed a contract with him. I did not have a company at the time when we first spoke, and I incorporated a company. I borrowed several tens of thousands of dollars. I wrote the proposal, submitted it, and ended up with a business that supported my family for 11 years and beyond that. So I was not aware that I was negotiating with change, But as I look back on it, it's clearly holds all the characteristic negotiation with change.
That's an intriguing story, Dave. If you were to define the meaning of change, can you help us with it? I know it's a very simple English word, but is there a meaning of change that we all are not aware of?
Well, change is like the weather. It happens every day. It happens in all kinds of things. There are microclimates, there are macroclimates, there is the climate. So change is a function of the universe in that everything is changing. Even the rocks are changing. And so one of the things that I find important is that I accept change and I encourage my clients to accept change as is it's a part of life. It's like the weather. We buy umbrellas because we know it's going to rain eventually. And so I encourage people to prepare for change. So I'm not sure if that answers your question fully, but it encompasses everything.
No, it does help. It does help, Dave. And I totally agree. We have to be ready for the change. But often we do have instances which are unprecedented in nature, which are not known to us. We can be prepared for change, which we have experienced or we know it's about to happen. But how do we keep ourselves ready for things which are unknown to us?
That's a good question, and it is a central question to so many people. The first thing I encourage is curiosity. Whether it's a disaster, or weather disaster, or political disaster, or whatever, curiosity is very helpful in dealing with unexpected change. The next thing, and I include that curiosity about yourself and your own feelings and thoughts about what's going on. The way that an effective negotiates is that they become well schooled and versed in everything that they are bringing to the table, their strengths, their weaknesses, their wants, their needs, their motivations, what they're willing to give up, what they're not willing to give up. And so oftentimes something big happens and we have life goals. We want everything to stay the same. It's one of the things that humans are uniquely qualified to do is to manipulate their environment for some sense of stability. However, big things happen. There's a lot of energy going on in the world and big things happen. When we are prepared with answers to all those questions, all those points of information I mentioned, we can negotiate with change, keeping in mind what it is we're interested in doing ultimately, our long-term goals. Now, if it's a huge change, if it's a huge challenge, we may be interested in dealing with shelter and food and safety first. Those are paramount. Once those things are taken care of, we can begin to look at all the other things that I mentioned.
Curiosity is something that has been serving mankind for a very long time. And we, as the human race, have recently just evolved from one of the biggest unprecedented change that my generation has faced. That was the COVID. You know, so again, I believe it was the curiosity of the scientists out there, of the people out there, to understand how to survive during this time that got us to evolve from it. What are your thoughts on that?
As I mentioned, curiosity, in many senses, we're still in the COVID. We're just not in the epicenter of it, as you said. It is my hope that the powers that be, governmental powers and people with influence, become curious about what's next. We are in this period of time where there's a lot of upheaval because of what COVID wrought. The dust is beginning to settle, and many people, and I believe worldwide, people are asking themselves questions like, what do I want? And what do I want for my community? And what do I want for my country? And this is just so important to answer these questions rather than to go full steam ahead on trying to create the old normal. This goes back to the original question that you asked about change, is that change is happening all the time in every way, and things are not the same now as they were in 2019. And the effectiveness that we use in answering questions like what's important today and what's going to be important 10 years from now, it's astounding to me how important it is to answer these questions. And as I started to say in the beginning, it is my hope that there are people that come up with good answers to these questions so we can move the human race forward in a way that treats the planet reasonably well and treats each other reasonably well.
Thanks a lot, Dave, for answering that question. Because for me as an individual, I would say that's one period when I saw the change happening at a very rapid pace out there. I remember organizing certain sessions where a lot of startup founders and individuals were finding ways to evolve themselves to cater to their stress, anxiety about the financial issues or the burdens that they were, very worried about, or probably somebody was worried about their loved ones being at the very forefront of fighting the battle with this virus. So change has at that time was in a very accelerated nature. And but at the same time, we also saw some people resisting change. So can you, help us understand what are some of the common reasons that people resist change?
Human beings evolved from the beginning. We were able, I mentioned, we were able to manipulate our environment in order to create a safe place for our communities to live, a safe food supply or an abundant food supply, and shelter. So, just right at the beginning, that's what we're hardwired to do. And so we work very hard as a species to make things predictable, stable. And we do a pretty good job at that. However, there's this change thing that continues to go on, and we adapt to it and we move with it. So when a change comes along in a person's life, a large change like COVID or a small change like my car doesn't start, when we come on to changes like that, the first thing we want to do is resist it. It's just hardwired into us. I find that what works for me and for my client is to incorporate change into the stability that we have. And the only way that we can do that is to be really clear about who we are and what we want. So when this change comes along, we can continue to prioritize what's important to us and adapt to the changes that have happened.
Uh, in a corporate setting, change is something that's quintessential part of the journey out there. You face challenges every now and then. So, what are your thoughts on the strategies that a leader can implement or use for enabling their teams to navigate change effectively out there, ensuring that the overall ecosystem does not get disturbed?
Thank you for that question. Coaching itself, life coaching as it is today, started in the boardrooms 30 years ago or so when leaders were using coaches to stay ahead of change. So my answer to that question is it's just paramount for the leader to have a real clear idea of himself and his company and all the assets and liabilities that they have so they can negotiate with change, so they can realize that, as your question intimated, change is a part of business. Business, we start with an idea, we create our product, whatever that is, we move forward, and then the needs of the marketplace changes and we need to adjust to that. So if the leader is not prepared and walks into the Monday morning meeting with his hair on fire saying, oh my God, we got to change this. We got to change what we're doing here. His team is not going to walk away with confidence. But if he walks into the meeting and says, we've got an exciting opportunity here, and then when he's able to accept that change, whatever that business change is, he can then listen to his team and listen to their resistance about the change and begin to coach them through their resistance into a cohesive unit moving forward into the future.